I can usually smell something cooking for today. I wonder who it could be exactly. I don't know, the spaghetti bolognese, or pizza, or heck, even the forms of this special, like, meat in general. But I digress. Hey, what is up, ladies and gentlemen? I am Mario here once again, and I'm back for some more yet again for the likes of the Maxi Toys videos. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to more Let's Play of Super Mario Odyssey for the Nintendo Switch. So, last time we actually did manage to explore for quite a bit in the forms of Seaside Kingdom. Even though I just realized about something, we haven't done that much in terms of like grinding for more power moons and stuff like that in the forms of like, Seaside Kingdom. So even then though, don't worry, we'll get back into that kingdom once we're done with the main story of the game. Because even then though, that we have to concentrate on rescuing Princess Peach once again by the evil clutches of Bowser, by the forms of like, the actual wedding. So we might as well able to concentrate on that first. So, yeah, today for this episode, ladies and gentlemen, is the fact that we're going to be continuing on and we are going to be exploring through the most unique kingdom in the entire game, alongside with the forms of New Donk City. In fact, every single kingdom is actually very unique. Well, one exception by the forms of Cloud Kingdom, I will also say this right now, but here we go, on to the forms of Luncheon Kingdom. So, yeah, this place feels very similar to the forms of Sweet Mountain in the forms of Insonic colors, like, to me though anyway though, because everything else is entirely made out of food, and even then though, it's just a pleasant world to look at, even for the actual kingdom itself. And especially noticeable how the fact that they first revealed this back in about a year ago, thanks to the forms of how the fact that with the Gamescom 2017, they did manage to showcase off this particular kingdom and to see how this will plays out. And it turns out they only just shows us by the forms of like, let's just say, in the forms of the second half of the forms of the kingdom itself or something like that. Maybe, I'm not exactly sure, but even that is because it's been about almost a year now before I managed to able to look up on some gameplay footages on any kinds of like events like the E3 press conferences, or in this case Treehouse Live or something like that. In fact, it's been quite a few days since I'm actually going to be watching these kinds of stuff until, well, up until when it gets to next year, until E3 2019, things were able to still continuing for that edition. So, but again, we don't know exactly what the new games is going to be announced for 2019, aside from, the new Luigi's Mansion game in the forms of Luigi's Mansion 3 for the Nintendo Switch, and especially noticeable with the forms of, Mario Luigi Bowser's Inside Story plus Bowser Jr.'s Journey, and also Yoshi's Crafted World, and also pretty much Kirby's Extra Epic Yarn for the 3DS, and especially noticeable by the forms of the new Animal Crossing game, which we don't know exactly what the final name is going to be, but might be very curious though. But even though I'm not exactly a big fan of the forms of Animal Crossing series, honestly, because I don't know, it's just not my kind of thing. Although it's pretty recommendable, especially noticeable with the forms of the 3DS installments, but the forms of Animal Crossing New Leaf, Welcome Amiibo, or something like that. Or perhaps it's mainly because of how the fact they take it on the go on the Nintendo 3DS, but now we're going to be moving on to the next generation of consoles at this point, which should be the Nintendo Switch. Things were able to get a lot more interesting, and plus, in addition to that, you can able to actually take the Nintendo Switch anywhere you go. So even then though, that's a very pleasant surprise altogether. So, granted, we did already have an Animal Crossing game on the Nintendo Wii U, but long story short, it's a completely disaster at this point in time. So, anyways. Now, obviously, since we've already technically got the first Power Moon, actually, before we get into this, however, though, if you go all the way over there, then we're actually going to be fighting against with the forms of one of those Broodals again. So, yeah. Ho ho, we stole a whole boatload of this place stupendous stew for the boss's wedding chew. Oh, sounds convenient for that stuff. But I'm going to head back to up to the volcano and finish off that stew after I'm done with you. Yeah, I apologize for my lack of dialogue for this particular dialogue speech right there. It's most likely because every time whenever I try to able to record something like the forms of the microphone recording session onto that specific session, even though it's not the most convenient recording setup, I will admit though right away, But for whatever reason, I just keep on forgetting some of the dialogue lines and all that stuff. Because again, it's been a couple of months since actually coming back into this. And also in addition to that though, that we're almost low on time. But in forms of how the fact that we're going to be doing a special video update that's going to be coming up during the likes of in this Thursday. So even then though, we haven't got exactly that long in terms of like how much days that we've got. So even then, anyways. So yeah, with this particular Brutal right there, all he does the exact same thing, except, well, you know, it does like a different attack pattern. So even then though, not much challenging to this guy, but even then though, that's all he really can do. Just have to like, you know, get his hat off, and then that's all we have to do here. So there we go. The Brutals are after some cooking. Sorry about a little bit of a tangent right there, so I must confess right about now, and apologize for that. And in here, this is where we're able to actually get access to the forms of Under the Cheese Rocks. So that should be the next mandatory mission to get through. And then here, this is what the actual, like, actually, before we get to this, however, though, there might be secret down here, so even then, we might as well be able to actually investigate with that stuff. And here, this is where we're able to get ourselves these moon shards, as far as I'm aware for that. Oh, jeez, I forgot about this part. Every time you... Oh, I keep doing that. I must have become, like, a little bit of a shameful, disgraceful. But anyways, if you go all the way back there, you get yourselves the next power moon, corner of the magma swamp. So anyways, aside from that though, with the forms of the 2019 gaming releases and stuff like that, stuff like, I've already mentioned about a couple of them, but there are some other mentionings, like the forms of Kingdom Hearts 3, and especially noticeable with the forms of, I would say, Bayonetta 3, if it's a possibility, and also by the forms of, I would classify for saying, well, to be honest, there's not much else I can really think about. Even though, I'm really expecting there won't be any of those Mario Party games for quite a while at this point. Well, if they're going to be revealing, like, Mario Party 12 or Mario Party, Super Mario Party 2, then things can go pretty endless these days, even by the forms of how the fact that since we are still predicting to able to deal with our Let's Play of the forms of Super Mario Party next year, so even then though, they're expecting my predictions will be incredibly uncommon these days, or something like that. So, anyways, the magma swamp floating and sinking, in this case just grabbing those, you know, 4 pieces of the moon shards, and that's all you have to really do for this particular mission. So everything else just should be self-explanatory for the most part though, so... And yes, if you probably mentioned it, I've already mentioned about this in yesterday's video, but yes, I've now finally got myself the forms of The Legend of Zelda The Minish Cap, no, not The Minish Cap, The Legend of Zelda The Majora's Mask on the original N64 original cartridge, and I gotta have to admit though right away, this was probably one of my first time I've actually held the forms of, well, keep a hold of, actually, the new forms of the Nintendo 64 Gold cartridge, which I think is one of those things, how the fact that are very similar to the likes of Pokemon Stadium 2, well, granted in Pokemon Stadium 2, the forms of the original cartridge of the game, or in this case in Japan, he normally calls it Pokemon Stadium Gold and Silver, because originally, back in Japan, that the first Pokemon Stadium was actually, I'm assuming they did first release that game during that sometime in, I would say 1997 or something, or maybe 1998. But the second installment was actually the forms of the, based off from the international version of Pokemon Stadium 1. So even then though, technically in Pokemon Stadium 1 international release was technically the second game in the series. So even then though, that's only because the Japan only gets its very first game of the forms of Pokemon Stadium, or in this case Pocket Monster Stadium. So that's the only noticeable differences I just realized. So anyways, as far as the whenever I held the forms of you know, Pokemon Stadium 2 on the forms of the international version / Pokemon Stadium Gold and Silver, that gets like a combination of the forms of the golden material cartridge and the silver material, you know, cartridge color, which I think is actually very cool to look at, which can be the same applies for my copy of, or in this case, every single copies of the forms of The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask. So even then though, that I might as well able to point things out. And yes, I will able to actually do a Let's Play of those 3 duologies of those 3D Zelda experience at this point. Well, Not just yet though, because obviously that Mickey Mouse needs to definitely to get back into the forms of, you know, The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past first on the Super Nintendo. So even then, once that's been done, then we would able to actually continue on with the next installment of the forms of the Legend of Zelda series. I might as well go those in the, on this case, we like to go for the chronological order, like the forms of releases and all that stuff, like... we've already know about the fact that we've already done The Legend of Zelda, the first game, even though we technically skip over Zelda 2, The Adventure of Link, because of how punishing that game could be sometimes. And, especially noticeable how the fact that, we've actually got into A Link to the Past so far, so even though that slowly starts by the forms of how the fact that Mickey Mouse, again, still needs to get back into that game as much as possible before we move on to Ocarina of Time next. And especially noticeable for the Majora's Mask, and even by the forms of, in the future coming, years, will be The Legend of Zelda: A Link, well, I would say the Wind Waker for the Wii U version, because I know for the fact that in the GameCube version does have a little bit of an issue right there by the forms of the Triforce, grinding, which can be represented by the forms of the Tangle and stuff like that, so that's one of those things these days. And, especially noticeable with the forms of, like, the Wii U version's definitely the superior version out of the two versions, I think. Well, usually, they still both played really, really well in the forms of the GameCube and the forms of the Wii U version, but as far as the actual gaming experience will go, I'm presuming they might as well go for the HD counterparts of the forms of, you know, the Wind Waker, and especially noticeable by the forms of Twilight Princess. And eventually Skyward Sword, and I think that pretty much does it from here. Well, it all depends though, really, because there are a lot of Let's Plays we have to concentrate on, so even then, I really don't know if I can do a Let's Play of the forms of Breath of the Wild, honestly, because it just feels way too big, and plus as a result, it might take me a lot of hours, or even in this case, just minutes, to be able to actually finish everything, and even then, I think that's probably gonna have to point things out right away, but I digress. So anyways though, as you can see right there, I've managed to able to dress up as the forms of, taking notice by the forms of Yoshi's Cookie, by the forms of the NES game, we actually now dressed up as the Sheriff Mario. So even then, it's pretty much, it's important thing to know is the fact that we need to wear this costume just like in any other costumes from previous kingdoms, that we need to wear that at all times in case if we actually access to this room. So, and what makes it so cool is the fact that you can able to now finally capture the Plottaboo, which as you can see, you can able to actually just swim on the lava, which even then, because if you're thinking that the forms of how the fact that with this little pinky liquid, as you can see right there, by the forms of the actual icing or something like that, these are act out as lava. So even then though, they're expecting this might be safe for you, but nope, apparently it wasn't. So even then though, you have to like, in order to actually traverse from there, you have to simply, we need to transform into ourselves the forms of the Plottaboo versions of ourselves. So even then though, that's pretty, you know, something you should probably point out. So even then though, but again, I really do apologize by the forms of, the lack of, description for these things. Well, other than that, because there's not much else I can really say. Other than how the fact that, the Nintendo Direct, leaks is still all over the place when it comes to the end of this month. Most notably because of the Super Smash Bros. Ultimate Direct, during at some point it's going to be happening in November. Because, as far as I've, noticed about the rumors were true or not, but, I believe some toys already mentioned about this little situation. But the fact of the matter is though, compared to the forms of Super Smash Bros. For the Wii U's Direct, which did happen during the likes of in October before November, that the game was going to be released in that month. When back in during the likes of 4 years ago, actually. So, naturally speaking, about the fact that with the forms of the Super Smash Bros. For the Wii U Direct was now 4 years old, so expecting that might be a little bit more happening when it comes to November in the forms of Super Smash Bros. Ultimate Direct, in this case by the forms of before the actual game's gonna came out, or in this case the actual proper game's gonna be finally gonna come out and during at some point next month in December, in this case December the 7th, so yeah, you probably get the idea with the solution here. So another thing I want to point things out right away, granted because of how the fact there's not much else I could really speak of for the time, another thing is worth mentioning though is the fact that we've already noticed about the fact that we've already got ourselves Luigi's Mansion 3DS remake on new forms of about, you know, a couple of days ago at this point now. But I'm afraid for the forms of Japan owners, they have to wait until next month, which I'm pretty sure it's pretty much the same thing, or in this case equivalent to, let's just say, by the forms of like somewhat similar aspects about the fact that normally the American, or you know, it's kind of like the same thing, but it forms within Mario Party 9, and especially noticeable with the forms of, well, I would classify for saying, Island Tour, for this matter. About the fact of the matter is that they've always attempted able to release the English versions first, and then the Japanese versions can go last, which kind of feels the same way for Sonic Colors for the Nintendo Wii back in 2010, but in forms of Nintendo Wii and Nintendo DS, which even then that could be summarized as such. So, and yeah, that could be also same applies for the forms of New Super Mario Bros. U for a launch title for the Wii U, and especially with the Wii U system itself, and even Nintendo Land as a result for this matter, and pretty much any kind of games, well, not all of the games, mind you, because they are quite plentiful of Nintendo Switch games. They always attempt to be releasing in every single regions, with every single, well, any single regions came out on the exact same day as each other, which that's currently common by the forms of some Nintendo Switch games, like the forms of, as you can tell, Super Mario Odyssey, and especially noticeable with Mario Kart 8 Deluxe for the Nintendo Switch, and also by the forms of the upcoming New Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe coming onto the Nintendo Switch, and also by the forms of Super Mario Party, and also by the forms of I would say, well, except by the forms of Mario Rabbids Kingdom Battle, because during a year ago that they did manage to reveal Mario and Rabbids Kingdom Battle and during the likes of in 2017 in the English version of the game, most notably in the forms of the America and England and especially in Australia. But Japan doesn't get the game until 2018, so even then, that makes it pretty obvious because of how the fact that they need to able to add up a Japanese voiceover, but in forms of, let's just say, in the forms of the, you know, the intro cutscene where you basically introduce it to ourselves by the forms of the technology woman. I don't know what that girl's name was specifically, but she managed to able to actually create, you know, Bebo by the forms of the actual, like, you know, the techno existence. So I haven't really touched upon Mario Rabbids Kingdom Battle for quite some time at this point. I don't know what it is though, probably because of how the fact that I most likely concentrate on several other Nintendo Switch games by the forms of, you know, Super Mario Party, and especially noticeable by the forms of pretty much any single titles. I was still gonna get back into it by the forms of the now most recent DLC thing has just arrived. Like, during at some point in 4 months ago, which was, you know, Donkey Kong Adventures. Even then, though, that makes it seems the case, so, anyways. And also, the same applies by the forms of The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, which I barely got into it, because even then, though, it's a little bit different to me when it comes to, like, previous Zelda games, in my opinion, just because, well, I'm still looking forward to able to playing it, but it's just that I'm not actually ready for it yet, because even then, though, I need to concentrate on the forms of certain completionists when it comes to Zelda games. Some Zelda games are exceptions, but in forms of, you know, Triforce Heroes, but the forms of the Nintendo 3DS, and especially noticeable with Four Swords Adventures. In fact, funny thing is the fact that originally I was trying to able to get Four Swords Adventures for the Nintendo GameCube back in during the likes of my weekend shopping, but I didn't get around to it, unfortunately, though. But I will try to able to actually just try to get it as soon as I can. If there's any limitation space left with the forms of my GameCube shelf at the moment, but we'll try to figure this one out though. So even then, no, that can wait for some time. That can definitely wait. So yeah, aside from that though, again, there's not much else I could really say about this other than, well, I'm pretty dang excited because even then, today was actually forms of the 23rd of October in 2018, so we've only got ourselves 8 more days to go until not only by the forms of the final day of October, but it's also the Halloween day by the forms of that specific day. And when it gets to Halloween, I will definitely gonna have to play through a bit of, well, at least in my own time anyway, where with, Luigi did already tackle by the forms of, Luigi's Mansion on the Nintendo GameCube as far as the actual Let's Play of it. But until, like, next year or something like that, we would definitely gonna tackle through the sequel to the forms of Luigi's Mansion before, Luigi's Mansion 3 is gonna be coming out on the Nintendo Switch. Now we have to be Luigi's Mansion 2 for the 3DS. So, it might be very difficult for me to able to do the recording attempt on, or the recording setup for that, because most notably because it's really difficult to able to get the capture card for the 3DS these days, because they are a bit more pricey compared to the regular 3DSs, and yeah, as far as I can see. And as you can see, I've wasted it for about 4 minutes just to able to find that darn moon shard. In fact, the matter is though, is the fact that what's interesting is the fact that we can able to now finally take control of those freaking Hammer Bros that I've always despised them in during the likes of the Mario's past, specifically the 2D installments, because even then, now you can able to actually finally possess them, and yeah, you can able to actually toss the forms of these frying pans, apparently. So even then, though, that could be something is usually for this matter. So, anyways. Of course, this mission, as far as we already know, is the forms of under the cheese rocks. It's very simple. It's the fact that we need to toss the forms of the saucepan by simply we need to process the Hammer Bro, or in this case a frying pan bro, as what it's like to known. Because of that though, we need to get rid of these cheese rocks, as you can see right there. And if you every time you see a switch, although the fact of the matter is though, before we do anything, I need to double check what's beyond here. In fact, we got a more health up. So even then though, or in this case a heart, in case if, you know, more health to my disposal. And there's a switch over there, so we can able to activate that. And once that's been done, then we can now able to actually get our next power moon. So even then, if I'm guessing this correctly, the multi-moon is going to be at the very top of the volcano. So even then though, that can be the next target for this point. So there we go. Alright, so now we're done with that, and I believe the next mission we're gonna have to deal with at this point, after this little path opening sequence has been done, and this will able to lead us to the big part on the volcano. Dive in! So yeah, this is where the actual multi-moon is going to be located. So, in fact, before we do anything else, before we're able to get into that, even though I've accidentally ignored the checkpoint flag, I got to figure out how on earth do I supposed to able to get to this next path, or in this case the little bit of more of a, well, lava hopping and stuff like that. So path to the, you know, meet Porteo or stuff like that. I don't know exactly what their name is going to be, but either way though. And just like in the forms of Seaside Kingdom, there are once again there's going to be 100 regional coins. So expecting this area is going to be twice as huge as it used to be. But even then though, I don't really think I can able to gather as, you know, all of the regional coins in this specific one session of this particular kingdom itself, I'm afraid. But even then though, we'll get to more of those certain points throughout. So even then though, we'll grab these from here. And as you expected, there's a musical note right there. So we need to quickly grab them before it disappears and able to respawn at that specific spot. And every once in a while, then we should able to gather the power moon just like so. And thankfully though, the cappy does count to able to actually, you know, just trying to able to nab the forms of one of those musical notes. So taking notes, swimming in magma. So yeah, whenever I first saw this footage back in during the likes of in Gamescom 2017, I was really hyped for this particular kingdom because, not only because it feels very similar to the forms of, you know, Sweet Mountain Zone for the forms of Sonic Colors, for the forms of Nintendo Wii and Nintendo DS. I almost said 2DS for some reason. The fact of the matter is though, and also the same applies by the forms of one of the boards you can actually play, in the forms of in Mario Party 5, in the forms of Sweet Dream, except the fact that this particular kingdom is most likely based off from food products, and well, usually Sweet Dream kinda does the same thing, except it's all entirely based off candy and sweets and stuff like that, which I will appreciate it. I kinda wish there was more. I kinda wish if the next Mario Party game, if that's been announced anyway, we're able to actually add in a more board variety onto them. So even then, that makes it a little bit obvious. And here we actually jump into the forms of this particular familiar painting right there. Because if we couldn't tell by the forms of the actual image, we are going back to the Mushroom Kingdom. Okay, sounds a bit different. What a beautiful place. Yeah, exactly, Cappy, because this used to be my home. And we can't do anything too much other than just exploring through Yoshi's house, just like in the forms of in Super Mario World, and especially noticeable by the forms of the Sky Station Galaxy and Super Mario Galaxy 2, and hopefully we'll get into that game when we get to in the new year. The only thing we can do at this point is the forms of how the fact that we can able to, you know, wall jump from here on top of this little roof, and here we actually get ourselves this familiar sound. Does that sound incredibly familiar to you? Well, that's actually a throwback to the forms of Super Mario 64, which is very cool as far as I might say so for myself. But honestly, I don't think we can do that much of it up until when we actually finish up the main game, because, spoiler alert, in order to actually fully explore the Mushroom Kingdom, well, I probably guarantee I'm probably not going to mention about this too much of it, but obviously we do need to beat the main game first, so yeah, spoiler alert if those of you haven't got to this point yet. So anyways, but I'm looking forward to able to actually just explore Mushroom Kingdom itself again. So anyways, from here we get ourselves another one of those capless sections here. In fact, this might be a little bit tricky because, as you can see, we actually come across into the forms of these rotating platforms. So, but if you mess things up or what have you, then you have to redo the entire section again. So even then, though, that again, dying in this game is not too noticeable this time around, though, other than that, again, you lose 10 coins every time you die, instead of, like, the extra life and all that stuff, which I felt was a little bit more of a credit to do, because, you know, just like in Sonic Forces, that's the forms about the fact that there's no extra lives, so yeah. Alright, taking notes, spinning athletes. I'm presuming that's what that is actually known for. Well, in terms of the actual mission itself, obviously. So yeah, this is very, very tricky because of how the fact that not only do you have to be keeping an eye on with your toes, but also by the fact the matter is, though, there's going to be some occasional regional coins from here. In fact, we've already got 3 of them so far. Oh, Christ. No! No, 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 no! Ah, I failed! I failed on that obstacle course! Oh, that was a bit of a shame. Oh well, I did try it. I really do try when it comes to, like, even though it kind of feels a bit similar to the forms of the Super Mario Sunshine, you know, without any equipment, obstacle course and stuff. In fact, I was pointing things out right away. Why do I keep doing that? I'm being such a jerk. Oh, my voice is a little bit too nerve-wracking. Or maybe it's because I always keep on doing some little bit of speedrun tactics and all that stuff, although it might be a little bit difficult to me, though. But, other than that, though, it's... I don't know, what do I think? Anyway, yeah, other than that, though, as far as I said this before, I would love to redo the actual Let's Play of the forms of in Super Mario Sunshine as well, and especially noticeable, like, let's just say Super Mario 3D Land or something like that. Well, we're probably not going to do a redo Let's Play of Super Mario 3D World because that's already been done, and the quality itself is actually really, really top-notch better. And especially noticeable with Super Mario 64 and Super Mario 64 DS, because both of those Let's Plays has been going so well when it comes to, like, commentary, and especially noticeable with the quality itself. So, in addition to Super Mario Galaxy 1 and 2 needs to be redoing, and I believe I would do the same thing for Super Mario Sunshine. So even then, though, hopefully we're able to actually get these 3D Mario games done before the next one's announced, or for some time anyway, though. Or in this case, Super Mario 3D Land, which can be very noticeable. Oh my god, I'm almost gonna be burning to death! But in forms of getting burned by the flames. Jeez. Lights the lantern on a small island. Yes. As far as I accidentally just burned myself from that little cutscene triggering and stuff like that, which I will admit though right away that serves as more purpose, but anyway. Oh yeah, as you can see, every time you actually just land onto those little hot, spicy, tomato-looking enemies. Basically, every time you either throw Cappy at them, or just essentially just disguise, or in this case, just capture the plotted boo onto you, what happens is, though, is the fact that they split the lava a little bit, and then what happens is the fact that you can able to actually extend the forms of your landing departments when it comes to able to landing on the lava. So even then, though, that can mean so much, even by the forms of how the fact that it might be very useful if you want to able to actually just to proceed on things if you manage to able to transform into, you know, Plotapoo again. So even then, though, that could be, you know, pretty much doubtful anyway, so... And from here, this is where we actually go come across into the forms of another obstacle course and stuff like that. So, even though the first power moon on this particular section is very simple, you just have to, like, do that. And that's what you have to do. Crossing to the magma. But that doesn't stop there, because obviously we have to go through this narrow path right there. Well, be very careful at this point, because obviously there's going to be plenty of ways you can able to fall off to this point. Either you... jump over for the bottomless pit or something like that. Well, usually the bottomless pit can be a very bad thing, mind you. And, seems so far, we're actually on the halfway point of the forms of regional coins, and... Oh, no! I failed on that on purpose! Oh, jeez, that was my fault. Hopefully, though, we'll try that again, but, hopefully it won't be as too much of a pain of in mind of its own thing. So even then, though, we'll, try that one again, so hopefully we can get this right this time. I don't think I can able to actually gather as many of those power moons in this video, though, unlike any forms of New Donk City for the most part, though, because I've actually gathered as many of those power moons back in that kingdom, because that kingdom is actually way bigger than any forms of well, a little bit more expansive than you think about it. And that could be also the same applies for this one as well, but it all depends I've got time before I'm able to actually move on to the forms of, like, the next kingdom after this. So even then, though, that, so far, we actually did manage to gather it. I would say, 24, because, you know, with the ones in the forms of, the first power moon I've got in that specific kingdom, that was technically by the forms of the secret path I actually did take. And, as a result, it actually leads me to 25 power moons, so even then... Technically, I've already got myself the forms of 24 instead of 25. So, but, you know, you get the suggestions from this point here. So, anyway, it's time to take the Hammer Bro, in this case the Sheriff Bro, as far as I might say this much, to able to, as you expected, just destroy these little cheese rocks, and then once you do so, then obviously this little plank right there, which actually it's apparently a golden turnip, and as a result, you have to deliver this for 3 times. Like, one of them is very simple, it's actually located near to the boiling pot, and the second one is actually gone further away by the forms of the boiling pot, and the third and the final golden turnip, it was going to be somewhere at the very top somewhere. So even then, though, that we're going to have to figure out how do we able to get up there, but the easiest way to able to get to this point is the fact that not getting hit by the forms of the spiny shell, but also the fact that, well, you got to keep on doing that unless if you're trying to able to reach this highest height. Go for this path right there, and then obviously that you would able to chuck it into the forms of the boiling pot, or the simming pot, I should say. So, if that's the case, then the power moon is right into you, so... Yeah, so self-explanatory, not that much of it, minor inconvenience, but self-explanatory. Alright, I think that's it for now, other than the actual, although it does say the golden turnip recipe, number 3, but there's going to be the third and final one that we can able to find, which usually says the golden turnip recipe 2. So even then, though, that can wait until whenever we decide to able to go ahead and just figure this one out, and yeah, we're almost there to the forms of almost towards the very end of the forms of the main story at this point, ladies and gentlemen, other than the you know, power moons that we can still gather, and especially noticeable by the forms of, like, even more missions as a result, and, you know, to get the idea with the solution. So yeah, that's what I can really say about this point today, folks, other than, well, any forms of, there's not much else I can really say, because I'm seriously still low about, still running out of ideas when it comes to, like, news and announcements and everything, because, well, there's not much else I can really tell, other than there's no new surprises going on, and especially noticeable with the forms of, like, well, other than the fact that the Halloween event is going to be happening, of course, at the very end of October so far. how the world that Plutterboo just jumped way too higher than any other Plutterboos. I don't know why. But anyways, there's another secret door that we can enter in, and this will actually lead us to this a pretty fun obstacle actually, by the forms of flickering the fork. And basically, as far as you can able to fully unaware, we need to capture those forks, and then every time you capture the fork, you would able to fling up yourself upwards. Even then, though, that should be a very fun obstacles here and there. So even then, though, that again is very simple, self-explanatory. But keep in mind is the fact they need to use those little arrow catapults, as you can see right there. I'm not exactly sure what these obstacles were named, but you can just simply use those as the forms of going back onto the forms of the fork capturing. So even then, though, that's very relevant, especially noticeable with this particular first obstacle suggested. And yeah, that's about it. But that doesn't stop there, because obviously there's actually this last power move now before we leave. Fork flicking to the summit. And you can also take this alternative method, like I just did right there, to simply just long jump here, and then that way you can get yourselves the fork flickering detour. So even then though, so basically the secondary power move that you can actually get in the forms of this obstacle course in mind. So that's about it. Alright, so I'm assuming we've done with that for now, so let's just walk back to the forms of this particular checkpoint flag, which, you know, it actually leads us to the forms of, almost near towards the forms of the meat Petulio or something like that. So even then though, that will be the next thing we'd like to do. In fact, the matter is though, let's keep on just using double jumps and triple jumps occasionally, and things will be able to be worked out as it used to be. So, and occasional backflips, which even then I always love enjoying just achieving that specific move. So anyways though, alright, so let's go ahead and just fling ourselves from here. In fact, there was actually something over there, but I think we've already done that. So even then I should probably point things out. So basically, in order to actually deal with this part right there, is that after we touch the checkpoint flag, and you should able to realize how the fact that you could able to actually just interact with this particular meat. But what's weird is the fact that we need to press the B button until you're able to actually decide to let it move. Okay. That mustache on the actual meat. I kinda like that actually, because even then it just makes it a little bit more weird in terms of like the actual like aesthetics of it itself, but hey, I don't mind about it. And apparently it's gonna take me all the way to this boiling pot, and we're gonna be ended up in, you know, all in hell. Or maybe we're not. Although, other than the fact that there's actually two different ways you can able to get to the power moon. You can either do the normal platforming, or to simply just use this extremely long jump, and then that way you would able to gather yourselves 3 moons all in one, which is essentially multi-moons. So, there we go. Self-explanatory right there. I don't think there's anything else to it than that, other than this cutscene. Oh Christ, what's he gonna do now? Oh, you didn't tell me you're gonna blow me away from that, aren't you? Even though, despite the fact the volcano just erupts itself. And I believe it takes me back to the forms at the very beginning of the stage. And apparently we actually transported into the next mission, climbing up to the chasm of cascading magma. Yay. Blast all the way back here. That is one angry volcano. And the volcano is still erupting. So yes, you know what that means, folks, is the fact that much like in Wooded Kingdom, this kingdom is not entirely over yet, and especially noticeable with the forms of Metro Kingdom itself, by the way, because there's going to be still more things to come. So even then though, how much power moons that we've got? I'm pretty sure we've actually got ourselves like 31 power moons. I'm not exactly sure, I miscount, which, yeah, it's definitely like 31. So even then though, now since we've actually powered up and we've reached over 300 power moons, so that way we can now explore the next kingdom, but again, we'll save that for the next video after this. Well, it all depends though really, because even then, Yeah, we got the ending stuff for this point right there, and I'll talk more details about the forms of the actual world map and join at some point in the future, because even then, yeah, join me next time on Let's Play Super Mario Odyssey for the Nintendo Switch, is that we're gonna be still continue on exploring through the Luncheon Kingdom and deal with the rest of the main missions, and able to do some more moon grinding stuff like that. So see you guys then. Later, fellas.